Before I jump into this video about the boring world of applying for jobs and industrial placements, let me talk about something a little bit more exciting. Over Easter, I'm going to be hosting a meetup in London, and it's going to be really exciting. We're going to go sightseeing, we're going to go on adventures, we're going to be filming videos, we're going to be able to translate this internet friendship we've got going on into a real-life friendship. And it's going to be on April the 11th, 2015, and we're going to start in Jubilee Gardens at 11:30. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, then in the description down below there is a blog post about why it is that I'm going to be hosting this meetup, and there is also a Facebook event for the meetup. So if that appeals to you, then go to the Facebook event, set yourself to going or maybe going, or let me know in the comments down below. And if you have any questions and the blog or the event page don't answer them, then feel free to talk to me in the comments or tweet me and ask me your questions on my Twitter account at JamiePed. I really hope you can make it. Like really. But onto something a little bit more boring. Jobs. Ugh, a lot of people get scared at the idea of jobs, the idea of leaving education where everything is nice and soft and cuddly and you get to stay in bed longer and there's lots of your friends and all of that kind of stuff. But at some point, unfortunately, we all have to grow up. No, we can't fly off to Netherlands and be young forever. We have to grow up and get out there and get a job at some point in our lives. And that's what I want to talk about, because this time last year I secured my placement. And my placement, for those of you who don't know, is an industrial placement with my university, which means that I can take a break between second and third year in order to go and learn in industry. So I go and work for a company that does something that is going to complement my degree, and I can both experience real life work and also learn at the same time, and it would in theory help me in my final year at uni. And I would recommend this to anyone who has the opportunity in order to do it. It's a really good experience. And to be honest with you, I really enjoy it. I'm not really looking forward to going back to final year. I've tasted the sweet life of working between 8 and 4:30. And then when you leave work, you come home and you don't work. Like when you're at university, you're always working. It's like you come back and you're working, and then at the weekend you go and work. But in a job, you don't do that. You just come home and you relax and you make videos for people on the internet. I mean, at uni, you're paying a lot of money to be very stressed. At work, they're paying you money to be not quite as stressed. Sounds like a win-win. But applying for jobs and applying for placements can be a very stressful time. I remember when I was applying to placements, I got to the point where I thought of giving up. Maybe I'm just not very good. Maybe I'm not a very good programmer. What is the point of me doing university if I'm not a good programmer and I can't go out there and get a job? I may as well just quit and just go full-time at a supermarket or something. But with a little bit of perseverance and a lot of hard work, here I am. And I'm not going to gloss over just how time-consuming and how stressful it is applying for these kind of jobs. The application forms you have to fill in are absolutely massive. They want to know everything from like your hair colour to your shoe size. In the description down below there is a blog post giving advice on how to apply for placements and jobs. In there's lots of advice and tips and tricks for you to do, but here I'm just going to talk about some of the stories that I've gathered from the pain that I've been through as I was applying for my placements. So I'm not going to lie, I probably applied to 25 different companies, and out of those companies I got 4 interviews, I think, and that's really disheartening. But there's something you've got to consider. A lot of people are applying for these placements. A lot of people apply for jobs. So you are competing with a lot of different people. Now, when I was applying for my placements, I was basically picking the ones that I was most interested in. But I was applying for software engineering roles in big companies like Google, like Microsoft. I also applied to firms that specialize in data security. Some firms that specialize in like missiles and exciting stuff like that, because that's really cool. But I'm quite lucky in the fact that computer programming, software engineering is something that is done everywhere. So instead of focusing on big companies that a lot of people flood towards, I thought it would be great to go for a smaller company. What I'm quite interested in is the idea of creating a company from scratch. So I was looking for relatively small firms where I could see how more of the system worked and about how the company worked as a whole as opposed to just the programming department. Sure, it would be great to go and work for someone like Google, but you're going to be a very small cog in what is a massive machine, whereas if you go to a smaller company, then you are going to be a much larger percentage of that machine. And that's something that's more interesting to me. And considering how much time it takes to apply for these kind of things, you have to be really selective over who it is you apply for. You've got to make sure you have a desire to apply for each and every single one of those companies, because A, it will show up in your application and your interview that you're really interested in it and you'll be more favourable, and B, if you get it and you're not really interested in it, you're not going to have a good year. But since I was applying for more or less the same job at several different companies, I just created one CV at the very start and I fine-tuned it and fettled it as much as possible. I made it nice and pretty, I used an interesting font, and I made sure that it stood out. But then once I'd written it, I essentially locked it down. I didn't touch it again. I tweaked it ever so slightly if I was going from like a research company to a gaming company. But a job in software engineering is a job in software engineering, and a CV that would work for that would also work for that. So it only needed slight changes. What did need the biggest changes was the dreaded cover letters. Oh, cover letters. A cover letter is something that you put on top of your CV that kind of sells yourself. It's what they read before they read your CV. If you've written a crap cover letter, they're not going to read your CV. Writing 25 different cover letters to different companies is an absolute nightmare. And I'm going to let you into a slight secret. Don't write 25 different ones. Write one for this company, one for that company, one for this company, one for that company, and then if you apply to a company in the same sector, use that one. Tweak it ever so slightly. Cheat the system a little bit. But I went on the proviso that on my covering letter, I didn't want to be a robot. I didn't want to just say on there that I'm really good at teamwork and I'm really enthusiastic and I'm really hardworking. Because I feel like if you write a cover letter like that, you just kind of reduce yourself. You just kind of fall back into the crowd of drones that are also applying for the same jobs. So I went with the theory that if I make the cover letter interesting, if I make myself out to be a person on that cover letter, then I'd be more likely to do it. So on the jobs where I was going to go and work with fighter jets and programming fighter jets, I said in the letter about how cool it would be to program fighter jets. I made it really clear that I was passionate about it without putting the word passionate. Now I don't know if that worked. It could be a terrible piece of advice, but it's something I did. And thinking about it, I didn't get a single interview for anyone to program fighter jets. But that isn't the point. So once I'd nailed down my CV and I'd created enough cover letters so that I could quickly produce other cover letters for similar companies, you then have to go through the huge application forms online, and these are absolutely huge. And my one piece of advice for this is save all of your answers. Some of the questions appear on multiple different applications for different companies, so one, you'll be able to just copy and paste your answer in, but two, if you get to interview, they've got all of your answers. There was a couple of times where I had to do like programming tests or maths tests for a company, and the questions were absolutely ridiculous. If you clicked off the internet browser, you would just fail because they thought you'd go off and Google the answers or something. And you had 30 minutes to do a test which they themselves said should take 40. And the key thing to do is stay calm. They are deliberately giving you a really hard test. What they're really doing is testing how you behave under pressure. There's a lot of competition and companies are very, very picky, and you just have to sell yourself to them the best way you possibly can. And it's hard. It's really hard. And especially when you're balancing everything else that you've got going on in your busy, busy lives. But it's worth it. So don't give up. Persevere. Work hard, and just to apply to as many different companies that you're interested in as you possibly can do. And you've just got to hope that it'll all work out all right. And that's all I really have to say about the application stage, to be honest with you. All I can say is that I wish you luck, and I hope that you don't get disheartened over the process of applying to jobs or applying to placements. I'm going to be making another video soon on this channel all about the interview process. So if you have any questions about that specifically, then leave them in the comments down below so that I can incorporate that in the video. Also, I'd like to remind you that in the description down below there is a blog post that should give you a lot more detailed advice about how to apply for jobs and placements and stuff, along with the blog and the Facebook event for my London meetup, which is going to be really, really, really cool, and it'll be really awesome if you could go. So that's all. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to hear from you soon about all of the things we've discussed in this video, and I will catch you later.